Oh, Yale. Any objection to being part of my tournament for level?
We pose. Kind of.
You look really mad at Jacob.
Okay, that's good enough.
Anyone have objections to starting?
Jesus Christ. I object.
Awesome one.
No, no, you can't start.
Leslie Valiant predicted that the runtime of an algorithm that performs this process could be reduced to big O of n to the 2.38 by converting the input into a Boolean matrix. One algorithm for this task consists of 3 subroutines: predict a substructure, scan the input, and complete a substructure. That algorithm for this task conventionally represents incomplete substructures with dotted rules to indicate the unprocessed elements. Another dynamic programming algorithm that performs this task in big O of n cubed time for an input string of length n is named for Koch, Younger, and Kasami. This task is often performed on source code using a shift-reduce method and on natural language by Hurley's algorithm. Based on the order in which they operate, algorithms that perform this task are classified as either top-down or bottom-up. For 10 points, name this process of converting strings into a syntactically parsing.
Yeah.
Bonus, this man claimed to have spent 3 hours without a heartbeat before waking up with knowledge of the 4 evils, which were whiskey, witchcraft, fake love, and abortion.
Nice.
10 points each. In this Seneca religious leader who brought the Dio, or good word, to his Iroquois people in the late 1700s.
This guy said
James Wood eventually turned into today's longhouse religion.
Yeah, code of, oh my god. Oh.
Answer: Handsome Lake, or other things. This Iroquois woman, known as the Lily of the Mohawks, was the first Native American to be canonized and was baptized as Africa. Although she survived a smallpox epidemic, all of her facial scars and miraculously dated after her death.
Kateri to conflict there or whatever.
Yes. The French and Iroquois clashed throughout the 17th and 18th centuries, and wars named for this rodent, whose warm pelts were traded down the St. Lawrence River Valley.
Yeah.
Good. Laura Healy translated a poem by a poet from this country that states that we're human beings, my son, almost birds, public heroes, and secrets. The speaker of that poem from this country notes that death didn't even close our eyes after stating bombs were falling over Mexico City, but no one even noticed. An author from this country wrote The Unknown University and included his poem Godzilla in Mexico in the book The Romantic Dogs. A poet from this country says to God, "Return him to my arms or remove him from the flower," in a poem in which she declares that I was singing my poets. Actually, yes. Bonus. The character asks his wife to stop mending these objects while he's in the house, explaining, "It gets me nervous, I can't tell you, please." 10 points each. Name these things that evokes the woman whom Lily Loman had an affair with in Boston throughout Arthur Miller's play The Death of the Salesman, because Lily had given some of them to her as a gift. Answer: stockings. This character decides not to pursue his dream of playing football at UVA after walking in on Willie with the woman. This son of Willie idly plans to start a sporting goods store with his brother Happy. After returning from the flashback to the hotel room scene, Willie asks the waiter Stanley if there is a store nearby where he can buy these items. In the next scene, Willie uses a flashlight to read instructions off the packages that these things allow while imagining his brother Ben. Answer: matches with seeds. 10 points. Toss up 3. Richard Eisler and Jay Skidmore developed a scale to measure stress linked to this quality. Ann Ferguson criticized the role of public elementary schools in defining this quality in Black people. In an ethnography of River High, C.J. Pascoe argued that this quality is constituted in contrast to the specter of an abject position. According to a 2015 book by Philip Zimbardo and Nikita Coulomb, digital technology is driving a crisis in this quality. This quality is the subject of Jennifer Siebel-Bruce's documentary, The Mass We Live In. Raywin Connell argued that there are multiple types of this quality rather than the singular hegemonic variant romanticized in the Carl Jung-influenced writing of Robert Bly. Uncle Kimmel studies regressive behavior driven by excesses of this quality, which psychologists sometimes call toxic. For 10 points, name this gendered set of behaviors constructed in opposition to femininity. Masculinity. Like the opera La Légende de Saint-Christophe, this piece drew inspiration from the composer's ancestral home in the Ardèche. For 10 points each, named this piece originally conceived as a fantasy for piano and orchestra, whose main melody is first stated by the English horn and recalls a folk song that the composer heard in Perrier. Symphony on a French Mountain Air. Symphony on a French Mountain Air is by this composer of the opera Verbal and former pupil of César Franck. He co-founded Paris's Scuola Cantorum, but his ultra-conservative taste later cost him popularity. Answer. That's song on B. This French composer included a piano song in his own third symphony, also written in 1886, though that symphony is better known for the massive organ part throughout its second half. He also wrote Danse Macabre.
That seems something.
Yes.
That'd be good. Thank you, Doc. Oh, organs. Yeah.
During the midst of this event, the artist John Leech created a cartoon subtitled "A Design for a Fresco in the New House of the Parliament," drawing from an earlier Willie Lee cartoon showing an elderly lady staring into a microscope. The policies of Edwin Chadwick exacerbated the onset of this incident, which sparked the creation of a Prince Consort flywheel, housed in a colorful Romanesque complex within Austinus. This event, which was alleviated by the designs of Joseph Bazalgette, was satirized in a cartoon in which Michael Faraday gives his car to a monster rising from the water. Many deaths from the Princess Alice disaster were a late consequence of this event, which declined in severity due to
Like the Great Fall.
which declined in severity due to the construction of the Albert, Victoria, and Chelsea embankments and improvements that lowered the level of cholera through sewer construction. For 10 points in this 1858 event, in which a very hot summer caused a foul miasma to descend over London.
The Great Sick. Sorry.
Is that what you're talking about?
Good protest.
Yeah.
That's it.
And here's your bonus. These compounds are synthesized from tyrosine and include dopamine and adrenaline, 10 points each. Named this class of compounds is named for possessing the terminal NH2 as well as a benzene ring with 2 hydroxyls.
That makes sense.
Which is something else, I don't think I'm catecholamine.
Like DNA, this product of catecholamine metabolism serves as a marker for adrenal disorders such as pheochromocytoma. This compound is formed from the breakdown of dopamine by either an MAO or COMT.
This might be NDA.
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 Homovolemic acid or HPA. Aromatics such as tyrosine are synthesized in plants through this pathway whose enzymes include chorismate synthase.
I know.
Answer.
Yeah.
Shikimate pathway.
Alright.
5. Recreations of this artwork include a statue by Salvador Dali in Puerto Banús, depicting its subject dressed in lace, an engraving on the door at the Pisa Cathedral, and a chiaroscuro piece by Willem Janssen. An engraving by Philippe Gall, depicting a subject known as Abada, is similar to this work. An inscription at the top of this work, which notes that its subject is fast, lively, and cunning, and has the color of a speckled tortoise, was largely drawn from a text by Pliny the Elder. This work subject was originally given to Alfonso de Albuquerque by Sultan Mustafa Shah II and was later sent as a gift from Angola first of Portugal to Pope Leo X. The artist never saw the subject of this work, which was the first of its kind in Europe since the 3rd century. Anatomically incorrect armored plates are shown protecting the subject of, for 10 points, what woodcut of a single-horned ungulate by the artist of Melancholia.
A rhinoceros.
Prompt.
Dark.
Yes.
I meant the word rhinoceros when I said elephant.
Sorry.
No.
There's unicorn.
I don't
Bonus. The book Quest for Excitement examines the role that sport and leisure play in this process. In this process, the titles of the 2-volume work, the second volume discusses the formation of states. Answer. Civilizing process. This Jewish German thinker founded figurational sociology by writing the civilizing process. Answer. Norbert Elias. The first volume of the civilizing process examines the history of these rules of etiquette. The 3rd volume of Claude Lévi-Strauss's Mythologiques traces the origin of a subset of these rules used at the table.
Manners.
Six. This saint convinced the man to convert, but his mule, which had been starved for 3 days, ignored the food that the heretic held out and instead knelt down before the Eucharist. At the funeral of a moneylender, this saint revealed that the dead man's heart was not within his body, but inside the treasure chest. This saint's earliest known hagiography is known as the Assidua. After the liberation of the of his city from Ezzelino da Romano, this man's body was transferred to a new basilica, upon which his tomb was found to have remained pristine for 32 years after his death. Because the man who stole a psalter from this saint's monastery returned the book after being frightened by the devil, he is known as the patron saint of lost things. The saint, who was known as the hammer of heretics for his eloquent preaching, was said to have converted Rimini away from heresy by delivering a sermon to a crowd of fish. Which points to the saint who preached in Padua.
Because I've been to the cathedral of St. Anthony.
This site was uncovered by a massive storm near the Bay of Skyle in 1850, but lay mostly dormant until its excavation by Peter Gordon Child in 1927. Burnham Beach in this well-preserved ancient village in the Orkney Islands called the Scottish Pompeii, whose rude ware builders created a namesake type of decorative pottery.
Scottish
Answer. Skara Bray. This other of four sites comprising the heart of the Neolithic Orkney is a series of vertical rocks contemporary with Harappa and Egypt's Old Kingdom. People would make vows of Odin by sticking their hands through a hole in the rock heater. That ceased after William K. smashed the rock out of anger.
Is this a kissing rock?
Yeah, it's like the stone stone.
Blocking that?
Answer. Standing stones of Stennis. As we can tell from bones, the diet of Skara Bray residents included this great flightless seabird of genus Pinguinus, which went extinct after the last known ones were killed at Elbe Island in Iceland in 1844.
Oh, Great Hawk.
Yes.
Okay.
Good job.
Well, we're holding on to our
This poet wrote, "'Tis verse that gives immortal youth to mortal days" in his 8-line poem verse. With George Crabbe involved in this author is one of the 19th century authors in the exhibits section of Pound's ABC of Reading, which includes a poem by him that mourns lest Charon, seeing her, forget that he is old and she ashamed. This author of the epitaph, Jersey, wrote, "I strove with none, for none were worth my strife. Nature I love, the next to nature art," in a poem sometimes called Dying Speech of an Old Philosopher that he wrote for his 75th birthday. This author wrote A Night of Memories and of Sighs I Consecrate to Thee, in a poem that begins, "Ah, what avails these spectral groups." He included a dialogue between Boccaccio and Petrarch in his Pentameron, part of a larger prose work of similar conversations between historical figures. Yes. Bonus. In a poem, elegant paintings beautifully worked in silver and gold are brought out to dazzle these people who are bored by rhetoric and public speaking. Which I want to teach identifies a fellow group of the poem that concludes by noting of them that those people, they were kind of solution. Waiting for the barbarians is by this Greek poet. If you won't find a new country, you won't find a new shore. The city will always pursue you in the city. In the city, the addressee is told that you have done this action here in this small corner. You have destroyed it everywhere in the world. James writes poems titled for Lying in a Hammock at William Duffy's farm ends abruptly with the speaker claiming to have done this action. Answer. Time. Wasted your life.
Time wasted my life.
20.
Too bad.
Concept 8. This complex contains a pair of symmetrically placed redox tyrosine residues called Y sub Z and Y sub D that are both believed to undergo C and T reactions. Those two residues are respectively found on the T1 and T2 subunits that form a heterodimer at the core of this structure. Due to its similarity to a protein in the structure, the iron stress protein ISIA is also named CP43'. The exact function of cytochrome B559 in the structure is uncertain. The central portion of the structure is believed to cycle through 5 sets of oxidation states labeled S0 through S4. That portion of the structure is a manganese calcium oxo cluster. Electrons from this structure are shuttled to plastoquinone, which are in turn photosystem 2.
Great. I don't want to negative. Yeah. That's the only reason I was
Yep.
This thinker extended his idea of the false self to a theory of parenting that can accommodate a child's eventual loss of impotence and disillusionment with the world. While teaching this pediatrician and psychologist who came up with the idea of the good enough parent.
No, wake up.
His contemporary discusses the parenting advice of Julia Winnicott in her memoir, The Argonauts, which also describes the female-to-male transition of her husband, Harry Dodge. She also wrote the prose poetry collection, Lewis.
Maggie Nelson. Yeah.
Lewis quotes the essay Experience by this American author, whose other essays include Nature and the Overstory.
Emerson.
30. 9. This city was once home to Orcutt Lake Amusement Park, which had the most expensive roller coaster in the United States. The killing of taxi driver Homer Nita in the city led its police to allow an angry mob to lynch Roy Welton. Presbyterian pastor Charles William Kerr gained fame for sheltering refugees in the city, where the business district was built up by J.B. Stratford and O.W. Gurley. Wade Phillips set up his headquarters in the city, where his mansion, the Villa Philbrook, is now an art museum. Spartan Aviation was purchased in this city by LA resident J. Paul Getty, who started his financial empire in this city. Sarah Page worked as an elevator operator in the city when she was yes.
Oh, good job. Nice. I don't know how the race rights are.
Good.
This semi-permanent feature is responsible for Ulaanbaatar and Vladivostok's remarkably cold winters relative to their latitude and advantage. In this atmospheric feature that set a record when a pressure of 1083.8 millibar was measured in Agata on New Year's Eve, 1968.
Some fucking
What's a maybe
Siberian low pressure.
No, Siberian high pressure.
Oh, damn it! Yes.
The Siberian high is one of the many discontinuities in this eponymous atmospheric circulation cell in the northern hemisphere. This cell lies between the Hadley and polar cells and is responsible for
Barrel cell.
Yes. Because the Siberian high brings Ulaanbaatar's average temperature just below freezing, the city rests on the discontinuous type of the soil, which, unlike the continuous type, thaws during the summer.
Yeah.
Permafrost.
20.
Good.
10. 2 answers required. Frank Sinatra, who plays a man of English descent, sings a song in which he is the second baseman in a double play unit, also consisting of players of these 2 other ethnicities, in the film Take Me Out to a Ball Game. An early talkie film centering on members of these 2 ethnicities, which starred Nancy Carroll and Buddy Rogers and resolves the birth of twins, was directed by Victor Fleming. Learned Man wrote that copyright protection does not extend to stock characters, in a case about a 1926 silent film titled for families of these 2 ethnicities. A popular song in which the 2 singers dressed in Egyptian garb and the repeated question of positively was answered with absolutely was named for a duo whose members were of these 2 ethnicities. Ann Nichols wrote about a mixed couple of these 2 ethnicities in a play whose title mentions the character Davy and his Rose, which had points named these 2 ethnicities of the vaudeville performers Mr. Gallagher and Mr. Sheen.
Irish. And
Irish, Scottish.
Irish and Jewish.
Wow. I don't know, dude. Yeah.
It probably was like,
Cheetahs or something.
100?
Yeah.
Shit, I was thinking like Italian and Irish.
I was thinking Black Lives Church before.
Yeah. It's like,
What the Italians
Jewish.
They're both no, Puerto Rican.
oh, wait, what's that? It's like, the stupid show that's like, my mom, like my dad's
Ready?
Italian.
Gossip 11. 2 traditional responses to a thought experiment about a man who gets disability are identified with the thinkers B and V and Gareth Evans' paper on it. In a book on his theory of disability vindicated, the thinker discussed William Cheselden's report of a 13-year-old's first experiences with this process. This process as objects constituted a universal language of the author of nature, according to a 1709 book that disputes the idea that this process operates via natural geometry and argues that disability is entirely distinct and heterogeneous from tangible extension. George Berkeley's new theory is
It's vision.
Really?
It was, obviously
The whole
vision.
time. Okay.
known as functionalist attempts to preserve this belief system despite its explanatory impotence are analogized to alchemy in a paper that treats it as a theory. For example, this two-word term for the belief system whose existence and use as a theory for tasks like mind reading is posited by the theory. Jerry Fodor has argued that a mature science will indicate the core tenets of this theory.
Just artificial intelligence. Yeah. What?
Something supernatural.
Yeah.
Answer.
Ghosts.
Folk psychology.
Oh,
The aforementioned Paul Churchland paper is titled for Eliminative Materialism in Man These Mental States, posited by folk psychology. The content of these mental states are expressed with that clauses such as John believes that snow is white.
Subjective.
what?
Answer.
It's quality.
Propositional attitude.
That's right.
Oh,
Further
okay.
has blended both psychological explanations of behavior as deriving from the input of desire and this concept. Edmund Gettier has challenged the conception of knowledge as justified truth to lead a state
Yeah,
of
we-
with the flood.
I have to tell some truth.
When the main character of this story asks an old man what the large knot he is making is for, the latter replies for someone else to undo and throws it at him. 4 men picking oakum and 6 men polishing hatchets overlook the main action of this story. The story notes how a character was dragged to the gibbet at the tail of a mule before his head that, high from subtlety, was put on a pole in its concluding section, which follows extracts from the official deposition of its title character. One of the protagonists of the story expresses incredulity over a tale about being becalmed for 2 months. The character wrapped in the Spanish flag shakes so much that he
Yeah, okay, this is Benito Sereno.
Yes.
It's okay, I got it. It's fine. Still
Due to this man's paralysis, it took the executioner 15 minutes to arrange him on the guillotine. In this wheelchair-bound French revolutionary, best remembered for drafting the law of 22 Prelims, or the law of great terror, along with Robespierre. The action of someone to relieve him from military operations after he could not put himself to oversee the destruction of Lyon.
So it's like he wasn't receiving wheelchair, but yeah, when you're the other one, Sechis.
Georges Couthon. Wow. Couthon, along with Robespierre and Saint-Just, served on this 12-member executive council during the National Convention.
Committee of Public Safety.
That's why it's the executive. This other member of the committee and later directory was a military engineer who developed a namesake fortification called his wall. This organizer of victory proposed the levée en masse system that constructed all unnecessary establishments in there.
Cornell.
13. In a modified writing system promulgated by this ruler, the word for person was changed to become a combination of the words for one and life. When this ruler ordered the execution of a political enemy, that woman vowed to be reincarnated as a cat, leading this monarch to ban cats from the royal palace. The monk Huai Yi was endowed with the title of Duke of Wu by this ruler, who later ordered him to be killed after he quarreled with Prime Minister Su Yangtze. The murder of this ruler's infant daughter led to the framing of Emperor Wang. The face of the largest Buddha.
Yeah, the Wu.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That's not first.
I looked that up like 2 days ago.
And
Yeah,
good
she
first line,
changed
that's
a
awesome.
bunch of Chinese characters to be like.
But Empress was not.
Yeah, yeah.
The narrator of 2007 film frequently compares the river junction on which this city was founded to arteries and Hunter's Lab. For 10 points each, Name the city where fictionalized Guy Madden hires actors to recreate traumatic events from his childhood. Madden wants to film his way out of the city, which he places at the heart of North America. Answer. Winnipeg. Like Madden in Winnipeg, Hayden Kochard gets actors to play people in his own life in Synecdoche, New York, a film by this director. This man wrote the screenplay for adaptation and Eternal Sunshine of His Father's Mind. For an adaptation of this novel, Madden had an Asian actor play the title character to emphasize its xenophobic subtext. Critics have observed similar anti-Semitic themes in Nosferatu, F.W. Murnau's adaptation of this novel.
Back left.
Well, I guess the bigger is the second.
14. C.K. Williams reported that the polymerization using one of these compounds as a starting material had excellent control through use of a particular zinc-2-diamine complex. A seco acid is slowly added to a solution with TFBA or NMDA to form one of these compounds in a reaction named for isamu-china. These compounds name a class of psychoactive molecules such as cavein that are derived from the kava root, or kava-in. The presence of a gamma lactam in one of these structures defines the core of acetylenosporamide. We go to discover the reaction in which an oxygen and iodine are added across a double bond to form one of these compounds. Pharmaceuticals containing this functional group end with the suffix bromycin and are polypeptides called macrolides. A 6-carbon molecule of this type is polymerized to form PLA and forms the dimerization and dehydration of lactic acid. For 10 points, these compounds that consist of cyclic esters.
Lactose.
Yeah.
Oh! Yeah, it's about to
No, I don't.
I know.
This element forms a bright green 20 electron metal team, 10 points each. names this element that with aluminum is found in a catalytic powder being for Murray graphene.
Nickel.
A carbonyl protected by this compound may be hydrogenated in the presence of radium nickel to form an alkene. When protected by this compound, carbonyls form a dithiene.
What? Dithiene is, yes, I do.
1,3-propene dithiol. Dithiene is formed through this reaction which lithiates the dithiene to form a masked acyl anion, effectively allowing a carbonyl carbon to attack an electrophile in a classic example of Umberlin.
Yeah, so Corey Sabak.
See that?
Corey Sabak.
Yes, one.
Jesus.
So 15.
I guess Cortec after this.
The composer of this opera dismissed a similar work as full of powder and minuets, in contrast to his own Italian passion, despite including a minuet of his own in the second act of this opera. The protagonist of this opera sings the aria Sola perduta abbandonata as she nears death. Descriptions of one character's thoughts appear in the score during this opera's intermezzo, which divides acts 2 and 3 and the protagonist's journey to the opera. This opera's title character expresses frustration over how boring her current lover is, and the aria in quelle trine morbide. In Act 1 of this opera, the male lead sings of his infatuation in Donna non vidi mai. The title character of this opera dies on the outskirts of New Orleans at the side of her lover, the Chevalier de
Girl with the golden breasts.
Oh shit, throw one.
Unlike in a French opera on the same subject by Massenet, which at points named this opera based on a novel by Abbé Prévost, with music by Giacomo Puccini. Time.
Let's go. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jacob.
Oh, yes, we have 190 for Yale and 130 for WUSTL.
I'm being afraid for probably Trinity.
So bad.
I don't know what it is.
It's just, remember, we can afford to That's wait.
Chapter 16. According to several accounts of this battle, a bright ray of sunshine passed through a man's body as he was run through with either a lance or a sword. Following this battle, the Archbishop of Canterbury worked with Yale to build the Tower of the Dead, from which the losing commander's head was displayed from a chain as a warning to traitors until Galilon removed it while visiting with Charlemagne. On the eve of this battle, a king dreamt of being bound to the wheel of fortune and was met by the ghost of his nephew, who urged him to make peace with a former ally. A truce that nearly averted this battle was broken when a knight drew his sword to kill a snake. This battle, which may have taken place at the Salisbury Plain, was fought to dethrone Camelot.
Yes.
Really? It's stupid.
Enter the following about Western translations of the Kama Sutra. The archaeologist Bhagwan Lal Idrahi did most of the work on the 1883 translation of the Kama Sutra, credited to Richard Francis Burton, which was published 2 years before Burton's translation of this collection that includes the story of Ali Baba. This University of Chicago Sanskrit scholar produced a more recent translation of the Kama Sutra. She has also written controversial The Hindus and Alternative History and a book on the bed shrift plot device.
This you should not. Palmer.
Wendy Donder.
Oh, I thought that.
These sequels to love in a dead language is claimed as a clumsy translation of the Kama Sutra by a disgraced Asian studies professor of this surname. A real author of this surname introduced his character, David Ketesh, in The Professor of Desire. Answer.
Barnes.
Roth.
Oh, I don't know that one.
That's 17. Comic elements in this novel include the character of Global Ben, a snot-nosed workman who appears with a bouquet of roses to give dialect-heavy speeches at events like christenings. The boy in this novel who loves listening to his friend Kai's stories about magic castles annoys his father by crying while trying to recite Shepherd's Sunday song and by drawing lines on their official family tree. After visiting a dentist who keeps a parrot named Josephus in his waiting room, the character in this novel collapses. Yes.
Actually, I didn't read that books. Okay.
In an influential study, researchers demonstrated how this effect changes decision-making by presenting different wordings to describe the outcomes of interventions for an unusual Asian disease. Version points each in this cognitive process in which wording an outcome in a positive way leads people to be risk-averse, while wording an outcome in a negative way leads people to be risk-seeking.
That's not contrarian. I don't know. Hero.
Framing effects.
The framing
The
effect.
unusual expertise experiment was carried out by Daniel Kahneman collaboration of business and related psychologists with whom content divides across. Yes. Charles Brainerd and Valerie Reyna developed a cognitive model that attempts to explain biases and fallacies based on fuzzy instances of these representations of memories. That theory draws on an early theory that describes memories as multiple instances of these concepts.
Recorded.
I have traces.
Did you write my thesis on that?
I did, but that's not it. Okay, we're up to 16.
Topic 18. A man lived in his country with Ellen Varley, the ex-wife of telegraph pioneer C.F. Varley, and her son from that marriage, Cromwell, at a mansion called the Place of Nightingales, where he had encountered the so-called Eagle of Zenat. An event in this country led a politician to declare that another country's influence had more than once in the past redeemed continental nations from overwhelming disaster and even from national extinction. That event in this country was sparked by calls for help from Hermann Wilbur, the so-called endangered German. The playboy Ion Perdicaris was kidnapped and ransomed in this country by the bandit Raisuli. To resolve the incident,
Morocco.
yes.
Oh.
A reclining chopped wolf statue sits atop this city's Temple of the Warriors, which south wall contains the group of 1,000 columns. The 10 points each name this great Mayan city of the Yucatan, whose El Castillo features sculptures of 2 serpents illuminated during these equinoxes. This site also contains the Great Ball Court.
I would go with that. Yeah, Chichen Itza.
The sacred one of these geological structures at Chichen Itza was dredged for artifacts by Edward Thompson in 1904. These structures were believed to be portals to the underworld and were a site of human sacrifice to Shah.
Sinod.
The ruler of this city, Nak Seel, reportedly conquered Chichen Itza after he survived jumping into the sacred cenote and emerged with psychic powers. The city, led by the Cocom family, controlled the northern Yucatan, including Uxmal in the late post-classic period.
No, Colin.
Maya
That's
During the concert in Padova, this composer improvised on themes from an earlier piano piece inspired by the legend of a harp left on the shores of San Francisco Bay and placed on a high point to vibrate freely in the wind. The liner notes for an album by this composer include a poem in which he imagines the pentagon being turned on its side and painted purple, yellow, and green. This composer of the Harp Review Albion performed the parts for electric organ, electric harpsichord, djembe, and soprano saxophone himself for the 1969 recording of a different piece. This composer used variable resistors to achieve just intonation on the Yamaha organ for his piece, Descending Moonshine Dervishes. With Lamont Young, this man studied under Quranic singer Pandit Praninath. Another of his pieces consists of 53 cells.
Right. Good. I performed in scene.
Yeah. Okay.
An artist born in this town painted over 240 images of his neighbor Helga Testor for 10 points each. He is claiming a town that was home to a family of American artists. Where's Wyethville?
Is it Wyethville?
It's Chad's Ford. What the heck is that? As a resident of Chad's Ford, studied under his father and C, and noted that Wyeth. Helga Testor paintings was kept secretly by his friend and neighbor of Wyeth's Chad's Ford, and presenting the way back to showcase his lavish big bend to see Chad's Ford was being frolic.
So dumb. I have no fucking answer.
George Alexis Wayman.
It's so hard for people to That's fun.
Fine topic. Niobium triselenide. Niobium triselenide is the prototypical example of a compound that exhibits waves of this quantity. Oscillations of this quantity are induced when large regions of the Fermi surface are related to each other by translation under a single wave vector, a condition known as nesting. An energy gap in the dispersion relation in one-dimensional crystals occurs at the pi-Rose transition and results in distortion of lattice alongside waves of this small quantity. Green's reciprocity theorem relates charge. -5. Green's reciprocity theorem relates integrals over the product of this quantity and the scalar potential for different configurations. The electromagnetic continuity equation states that divergence of current density equals the negative time derivative of this quantity. For 10 points, in this quantity that, when divided by epsilon naught, equals the divergence of the electric field according to Gauss's law.
Permittivity.
Hard questions.
I'm sick, but I'll wait.
225 for Yale, 180 for Muscle.
So close, yet so far.
If I knew what to write on first one.